best laid plans, as they say. We are at the end of this little escapade, this foray into truck leasing in a down market. Bottom line, don't do it. So I figured out pretty early on into this whole thing that, oh boy, this is going to be tough, because as soon as I saw the load board, which of course you don't get to see until after you sign all the paperwork, of course. There's a reason why they do that, folks. And it's absolutely abysmal. The market right now, as everybody knows, is horrendous. But I kind of figured that with Schneider being as huge as they are, and with Schneider owning as much market share as they do, and such long-term established customers, all contract freight, I figured, it would be tough. It's not going to be, huge money and all of this incredible market that was going on during COVID. I get that. But I didn't anticipate it being as bad as it is. And there are a bunch of things that I believe to be the case in the marketplace that explain why. I don't know 100% if I'm correct or not, but I do have my assumptions. And as far as the market is concerned, one of the things that you see these big carriers doing, and have been doing for a number of years, which is actually a very intelligent business move on their part, is you're seeing a lot more trucks that are what they call dedicated. And these dedicated customers are their big customers, their most important customers that they want to keep long term. And so what they did is they figured out that, well, if they approach these customers and offer them dedicated equipment, dedicated trucks, dedicated trailers, and dedicated drivers, that the customers would eat it up, which of course they do. If you're running a huge corporation and you've got a zillion shipments, why wouldn't you love that? So it's a very smart move on their part to capture the business and keep the business. It's not a guarantee that they're going to keep the business, but there's a lot more skin in the game on both sides of that table. So, they work harder to make it work. So I think it's kind of a win-win for the customers and for the trucking company. So from a strategic standpoint, from a corporate Schneider standpoint, or any other Swift or Prime or whoever the hell, these bigger companies, it's a very smart move. The problem with that, however, for lease operators, at least with Schneider, and I don't know about the others because I don't work for the others, but with Schneider, they do not allow lease operators to pull dedicated freight. So the only thing that we are able to pull as an IC driver, an independent contractor, are orange box general freight loads. So the traditional Schneider orange boxes, the orange vans. So anything with Toro or Target or Walmart or you name it. I mean, they've got dedicated accounts with all sorts of different customers. And for us IC drivers, we can pull none of it. So that really hits hard, because when the market contracts, right? Gets smaller, that's contraction, right? Yeah. It's been a long day, bear with me. So when the market shrinks, let's call it that, as it has, and there are many, many, many fewer shipments in the marketplace for general dry van freight, where does that shrinkage occur the most? Well, in the non-dedicated freight market, which, the dedicated lanes, they have contracts to fill. So are they feeling it there? Of course they are. Those shipments are down as well, but those shipments are covered by company drivers. So for us independents, the market that we get to pull our shipment from drastically reduced. So, and what is remaining, the rates are absolutely horrendous. So they're so bad that you can't really even, it makes no sense to pull them, because it's going to cost you more per mile than the shipment is paying. And then you're going to end up somewhere that you have no idea of getting a shipment to get back out of there. It's really bad. And one of the reasons why also I think the general dry van market is being hurt is because also with these massive companies like Schneider, like JB Hunt, I've even seen Prime getting into the game now. KLLM is in the game. There's a bunch of these huge companies. Swift, I know, is doing it. It's the growth of the intermodal trucking business. And what that has been a response by the trucking companies, realizing that the rail market, the train companies, have gotten a lot better and a lot more efficient at moving cargo. And a lot of cargo that once would never, the customer never would have thought to put it on rail because the waits would be too long. The rail business has become a lot more efficient. So now a lot of that cargo has shifted to rail because rail has gotten their act together a lot more than they have traditionally in the past. And they can get those shipments to where they need to be in a reasonable amount of time and save a lot of money. So if you ever notice these freight trains all across the country, take a look at them whenever you see one, and you will see nothing but intermodal van containers on intermodal chassis. They're basically semi-truck trailers carrying those containers. And you'll see the entire train is like JB Hunt and Schneider and Swift and whoever else. And then there's a few ocean containers and all of that stuff, but almost all of it, if it's not fuel or some other tanker or coal or something like that, it's almost all intermodal. So that's also a huge chunk of the dry van market specifically, but it's also hitting the reefer market because they have refrigerated containers that also move intermodal. That was traditionally always driven, and now not so much. So at least not cross country. So all of that said, it makes it for a not just challenging, which would be a word that I would generally use if there was a snowball's chance in hell of succeeding. It's an impossible market. It truly is. The only people I think that are making money as a Schneider IC driver right now are the people that have been in it and have been in it long enough to know their lanes and know their customers and know how to identify the freight that pays well. And then more importantly, they also know when those shipments generally post up on the board, because a lot of the business in cargo is repetitive, right? So, if you've been doing it a long time and you had the benefit of a stronger market to identify and, make mental note or written note of these customers that pay well, that puts you at a tremendous advantage, because what ends up happening is this experienced driver knows that on Tuesday at about 9 o'clock in the morning, this particular customer is going to post, a load that they want to haul. And sure enough, they sit there and hover on the board and wait for it, or put a feeler in there, an alert. They know the town. They're able to recognize, like some small town in Wisconsin. They know that it's, customer B or whatever the hell you want to call them, and they wait for it. And as soon as that thing posts, bam, it's booked. So what ends up happening is all of us new drivers that are coming into it when the market is completely trashed, we never even see the shipment. Because it's booked before we even have a chance to look at the load board. So that load board, unless you know where the fruit is, you're going to get nothing but stems, because the fruit's been picked. And on top of that, whatever you do get, you need to drive. And while you're driving, anything else that comes up on the load board, you're screwed, because you can't do that while you're driving. So you almost need a partner. Like if you have a wife or a husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, or a close friend, a brother or a sister or whatever, that can stay home and watch that load board and hawk it for you while you drive the truck, maybe that's a little bit different. The other thing I also thought about is the market that I'm in usually is very, very advantageous, because I live between Chicago and Milwaukee on I-94. Which is one of the busiest freight corridors in the country. So that puts me at a huge advantage as far as trucking and trucking companies and available options as far as work. And I thought that that would probably help me in this lease operator game. And I actually think what it has done is actually kind of hurt in a way, because I think everybody assumed, well, I mean, Chicago and Milwaukee area, there's so much freight. How could you go wrong? So there's probably an overabundance of IC drivers in this area, in this region, and that makes it even that much tougher. So these are all things I've kind of thought about as far as why the load board is abysmal as it is. And I've been doing this now I ran 4 weeks, and in that time I made zero money. I mean, literally no money. I was short on 1 week, I was short on another, I made a little bit on the other to cover that. So I think at the end of all of it, I'm going to come out of this with having worked 4 weeks running a truck and costing myself probably about $2,500, $2,600, something like that, by the time it's all said and done. So as I was doing my last week, and I was actually busy on some halfway decent loads finally, but still it occurred to me that, what am I doing? I'm running their freight for free. Actually, I'm paying them to run their freight. It's insanity. And I also remember that even the guy who ran the orientation, who was a wonderful guy, and he even made a comment at some point during the orientation saying basically that if you're coming in as an owner-operator, as an IC, lease operator, if you're not making at least double what you made as a company driver, you're wasting your time. And I think he's absolutely correct, because as a company driver, you get all the benefits. You get all the health insurance. You get, a company like Schneider has benefits out the kazoo. I mean, there's a zillion and one things that you get as a company driver. You don't get any of that as an IC driver. So if you add all of the value of the cost of all of that together, yeah, you should be making double what you were making as a company driver to make it worth doing. And if you're not, it's not worth it. Get a company driver job. And that's precisely what I'm doing. So this truck is going to go back to Schneider Finance on Sunday. It is Friday evening right now. Just cleaning everything out. I'm just about done emptying everything out. And Landshark Transportation is going to cease to exist. And I'm going to go back to a company driving job. It's far less stressful and far better money. And I've already got a company that has already hired me. And they're here locally in the area. And I'm going to run regional Midwest and run 5 days a week, 2 days off, like I always do, and make decent money. So it's something I had to try. I tried it. I would forewarn anybody who's looking into it, you might want to wait. And being a brand new lease operator in this marketplace is an almost guaranteed failure. If you've been doing it a while, if you're in your second truck or something like that with SFI or something, you're probably faring far better, because you know all of the customers that you like to run, and you know how to swoop in and grab them before anybody else even sees them. And those are the people that are surviving. And kudos to them. Hey, I don't take anything away from them. I think they've earned that as far as I'm concerned. And more power to them. And I hope they continue to be successful at it. But for anybody coming in, and I'd like to think that I'm a pretty smart person, at least above average. And I couldn't make it work. I just couldn't. It's untenable. So the truck's going to go back. The other thing also that you need to know about SFI leases is that, and this is not something that I knew until after the fact, but as a lease operator, as an owner operator, you're responsible for the truck. So all of the maintenance on the truck, if the truck needs anything, and of course the truck has a warranty and all that, and that's all well and good. But as far as getting a shop to work on the truck, you figure that, okay, well, if I'm leasing it through SFI, which is a division of Schneider, it's all Schneider, right? So it's all part of the same company, that, I'll have access to their extensive maintenance network across the country, because They have a pretty extensive maintenance network across the country. They also have parts and they stock stuff all over the country. So I was very disappointed to learn that they're getting away from that. So there are very, very, very few Schneider shops left that will work on lease operator trucks, which I think is awful. I think they're really throwing their IC drivers under the bus pretty hard, because you would assume, and it would be a false assumption unfortunately, but it would make logical sense that, Schneider should at least have some vested interest in hoping that their IC drivers are successful, because they're pulling their freight, for heaven's sake. So you would think that you would get not only to use their shops, but even get maybe a little bit of a discounted rate, and maybe some discounted parts rates and stuff like that to help. But no, not only do they not do that, they don't want to even touch your truck. They won't work on them. So that's a major pain in the ass, and should be known. And finally, the one thing I also learned with this truck, as beautiful as this truck is, it's a 2022, and it had 148,000 miles on it when I got it. And they say, that, you can choose from new and, gently used trucks, right? Well, again, stupid me for assuming, but, the Schneider way that I know as a company driver is that they're pretty damn on top of maintenance stuff with their fleet. And generally speaking, if there's a problem with the truck, they're on it pretty quickly. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, that's bullshit, I had a problem, blah, blah, blah. I've worked for a handful of companies so far, and I can tell you that based on my experience, Schneider's one of the better ones as far as being on top of maintaining their trucks, and if you have an issue, getting it in the shop, getting it rectified. So that being the case, I figured, well, before they're going to lease a truck to somebody, the assumption being they want that driver to be out there running freight. That's in their best interest. That they would check these trucks over before they put somebody into a lease for the next 2.5, 3 years. Well, this truck was either checked over by a blind mechanic, or it wasn't looked at all, because there are several issues with the truck. One of the most annoying of which is that it idles at 900 RPM, which is extremely high, and there's no way of putting the idle down. It also doesn't have reverse 2 gear available. The only reverse gear in it is reverse 1. Put those two together, a very high idle and reverse 1, which is the low gear in reverse. And what that means is that every time you try to back up with this truck, it jumps. It literally jumps. And it's downright dangerous, and very, very hard to control this truck when it's going in reverse. And if you watch some of the previous videos I've put out, you'll see examples of it as I'm trying to back up, that the truck just starts bouncing. You literally have to come to a stop to get it to stop jumping. And it's because it's revving too high and it's in reverse 1. If it was idling normally at 400 RPM and I had reverse 2 to switch into, it would be smooth as butter. So that's number one. Number two, all Schneider trucks have they have an electronic HVAC system, so they don't have the traditional diesel-powered APUs. They have what they call an EPU, or Park Smart, and it's an electronic HVAC system, and generally it works exceptionally well in Freightliners that I've had previously. I really do like it a lot. I actually prefer it to an APU. And with this truck, there is something electrical that's screwed up in it, where the Park Smart sometimes works and sometimes not. It'll just shut off. The HVAC system sometimes will just shut off, and if the truck is in opti-idle, it won't start the engine. It'll just go dead. And it seems to me, in my layman's opinion, but I mean, I've been around mechanical stuff my whole life. I'm by no means a mechanic, but I'm also not completely stupid when it comes to mechanical stuff and electrical stuff. It seems to be electrical. It seems to be some sort of a short somewhere in the system, or some relay that's failing or something. But my assumption is that it has probably been doing this since this truck was new, and whoever the previous driver or drivers were of this truck, never got it fixed, because as an IC driver, you have no time to get it fixed. You have to run freight to pay for the truck payment. So, taking a day to bring it to Freightliner and then having them sit on it for a week, it's not an option for most people. So what has ended up happening with this truck is they probably did exactly what I've been having to do, and that's idle a truck all night to be able to keep the air conditioning going. Well, what that's done is this truck is constantly needing a regen. So the DEF system is already dirty. So the particulate filter in it, I'm sure, is already pretty much halfway to being fully clogged, and it's just a mess. So there's several other little annoyances that are not that big of a deal, but still, when you look at all of that stuff, it's obvious to me that they didn't look at this truck. They took it back from whoever had it, they cleaned it up, and then they leased it to me. So buyer beware of that. You also don't have an opportunity to really inspect it or choose it or anything like that. You come in, you sign lease paperwork, and then you go through orientation. They pick out the truck, not you. So, in an up market, maybe all that stuff works. And, if I had a few weeks where I made really good money, then maybe I could afford, being down for a week and bringing it to Freightliner and having it all fixed under warranty. But, in the current market, there's no time for that because you need to make that truck payment, right? So bottom line, if anybody is looking at doing this, I would tell them, do not do it. Learn from my, I would call it a mistake. It was a mistake to do it. I think in my entire professional life, I've made a lot of really good decisions, and I've made some less than good, if not bad decisions as I look back on them. I wouldn't change them because, I followed the logic at the time that made the most sense to me. So I don't look back at it in terms of regret, but I do look back at it, at every experience that didn't quite go as I wanted it, as a learning experience. So not a regret, but something to go, maybe next time around I have a little bit more knowledge to make a better decision now. And this is definitely one of them. And if I had to be completely honest, I would say this was one of my worst decisions that I made in my professional life. And I've been in the workplace quite a long time, and I've done quite a few different things. I'm 57 years old, so I've done a whole bunch of different stuff in my life, including military, blue collar and white collar, corporate and non-corporate. I've done a lot of stuff. And so that's really it. I just wanted to let you guys know what's going on, and that's the end of Landshark Transportation. I will be terminating the company. This truck, it's Friday now. It's going back up to Green Bay on Sunday, and that will be the end of it for me. And the new company, I start their orientation on Wednesday, so right after the 4th of July holiday. They are here locally. It's a growing company, a little over 100 trucks, and I'm not going to identify them right away. I'm just going to, kind of feel it out first. Not that I have anything to hide necessarily, but I just think it's probably better that I don't, at least not right away. And then, hopefully some more videos will be coming along. There's a little bit of a break now for obvious reasons, but hopefully you guys understand it. So that was my foray into the SFI Schneider lease world, and it's a world right now that you do not want to venture into as a new entrant. If you're already in it and you're still being able to make things work, more power to you. In a better market, it would probably be a very different story, but for now, company driver is where it's at. Do not be going into leases right now. And that's it. I'll talk to you guys later.